The sun wasn't even over the ridge yet when my day went sideways. I was out in my vineyard, boots wet with morning dew, checking the lines like I've done every day since my father handed me this land. That's when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. 3 people in bright yellow vests marched straight into my rows like they were storming a crime scene. Clipboards, fake badges, attitude thicker than fog. The blonde woman in front stopped just inches from my vines, eyes darting over everything like she owned it. "Well, sir, your property is hurting community appearance. Daily fine is $500 until you comply." I blinked, took a slow sip from my old coffee mug, the same one my dad used during harvest, and tried not to laugh. "Ma'am, I'm not in your HOA. I've never been in any HOA." She smirked like she'd been waiting for that line. Well, that's changing. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Something told me this was only the beginning. Name's Mark Larson. I'm 51, third-generation caretaker of these vines. My grandfather planted them long before the subdivisions rolled in like plastic tidewater. This land has soul. Stone walls my grandfather stacked by hand. A farmhouse that creaks like an old ship. A lake near the back fence where my father taught me how to skip rocks. Every morning there's mist so thick it curls between the rows like smoke from a slow-burning fire. That smell of grapes warming in first light. That's home. But the folks who built the subdivision next door didn't want home. Wanted wine country aesthetic without any of the hard-working pieces that make it real. Enter the woman I'd come to know too well, Denise Ward, self-appointed queen of their HOA. I'd seen people hungry for power, but her shoulders were tight like she was holding in years of frustration. The way she blinked too fast told me she was rehearsing every line in her head before speaking it, and the 2 helpers behind her weren't much better. They walked like mall cops who finally found someone to boss around. I should have ended the conversation and walked away. But something in her tone-sharp, cold, smug made me stay put. I wondered, why target me? Why now? 10 minutes later, a sheriff cruiser eased down my driveway. Lights off, but presence loud. The deputy stepped out with the calm of someone who's broken up more than a few nonsense disputes. He asked what was going on. Denise spoke first, of course. "Officer, we represent a compliance authority for this community." The deputy raised an eyebrow so slowly it belonged in a comedy show. A real authority? Or an HOA playing dress-up? Her jaw flexed. That tiny twitch told me everything, within minutes. He told them to leave my land. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't 2 days later. Calls started flooding my phone. Zoning, Environmental Labor Board, Fire Safety, County Planning. Every agency under the sun had received complaints about me. Funny thing, every form used the same weird vocabulary. Same formatting. Same TYPOs. Someone was running a harassment campaign with the enthusiasm of a hobby gone wrong. When the inspectors arrived, most were embarrassed. One shook his head and whispered, "Whoever filed these doesn't know the first thing about farming." Still, I lost 3 full days walking government workers. Across my property, every single inspection came back clean. Yet every morning, Denise's white SUV would creep past my driveway. Same speed. Same timing. Same fake smile. The woman was studying my routines like she was writing a thesis on my life. And then came the flyers. Professionally printed garbage. Accusing my vineyard of community danger. A website full of lies. Reviews popping up online like weeds after rain. I'm not a man who angers easily. But watching someone threaten the land my father died protecting, that cuts deep. I took a long breath and realized this wasn't harassment anymore. It was war. The hit came on the hottest week of the year. 6:30 a.m., I heard a strange hiss. A sound no farmer ever wants to hear in summer. My main irrigation line cut clean through. water pouring into the dirt instead of my vines. One bad heat wave can ruin a season. Someone had tried to kill my entire year's work in one night, thankfully. I'd installed new security, cameras, infrared, wide angle, high enough resolution to spot a fly on a fence post. And there she was, a gear in a white jacket, moving through my rows at 2:47 a.m. Bolt cutters glinting under moonlight. Her SUV parked down the road like a getaway car. Every step deliberate. Every cut strategic. The body language of someone who'd convinced herself she was doing the right thing. I called my emergency. Crew, tanks, pumps, generators. Neighbors showed up with hoses and spare equipment. Before I even finished explaining where I'm from. When you mess with one farmer, you mess with all of us. By noon, we'd saved most of the crop, but the damage, that was deliberate and unforgivable. As I replayed the footage, I realized Denise had crossed a line she couldn't walk back from. A week later, the weakest link in her enforcement squad cracked. A guy named Bobby Nervous, sweating through his vest, sat beside me at the diner. She paid me to find violations, he blurted. Paid the others too. Told us to be creative. He slid his phone across the counter. Payments, messages, instructions to lie. Details for every false complaint, he whispered. She wants federal agencies next. And that's when the fury boiling inside me finally steadied into purpose. I hired an attorney who knew property law. It's the way a mechanic knows engine noise. We built a case, piece by piece. Every video, every recording, every ridiculous complaint, but the universe wasn't done helping. One night, while digging through my father's old paperwork, I found something buried deep in a folder older than I am. A permanent agricultural easement. It said any land developed next to my vineyard must acknowledge and accept existing farm operations. In simple words, my land has legal priority. Their HOA has zero authority. Their entire campaign wasn't just wrong. It was illegal. I took a breath and realized this wasn't a fight anymore. It was a finish line. The sheriff filed multiple charges: harassment, property damage, false government claims, attempted interference with farming operations, and when confronted with the evidence, Denise did the one thing nobody expected. She doubled down from her jail cell. She called HOA board members and told them to continue enforcement. Not knowing every call was recorded, her voice on those tapes was enough to sink any defense. At the county hearing, I presented everything calm, steady, proud. The video of her at 2:47 a.m. cutting my lines brought the entire room to silence then outrage. The supervisors voted unanimously to strengthen protections for agricultural land. Her own neighbors turned against her, realizing she'd spent their money attacking a property she had no authority over. The HOA settled with me shortly after, enough to recover every loss, enough to upgrade my equipment, enough to turn months of chaos into opportunity. And the best part? Justice didn't come from revenge. It came from truth catching up. My vineyard stands stronger than ever. New visitors come just to hear the story. My father's flag still hangs in the tasting room, same as the day he gave it to me. Land remembers who cared for it and who didn't. Farming teaches you patience. HOAs teach you paperwork. And people like Denise, they teach you how far someone will go when fear replaces common sense. But when you protect what's yours with dignity, community steps forward. Neighbors show up, truth comes out, and justice eventually finds the road home. If you've ever dealt with someone who tried to control land that wasn't theirs, drop your story in the comments, and if this tale kept you watching, hit like, subscribe. And stick around, I've got more HOA mayhem coming your way. Believe me, the next one is even wilder.